Welcome to the Women Always podcast, where we talk about all things surf and lifestyle, from female founders, top surfers, and amazing people. My name's Rachel Murphy, and I'm the founder of Women Waves and an all-round waterman. In this episode, we chat to Kat Pither, the founder of Yogi-Bare, creative writer, poet, and an all-round badass. We indulge deeper into who's behind this rebellious yoga brand, how she found yoga whilst in rehab, her new morning routine, the power of red lipstick, and overall having a good giggle. Stay tuned and enjoy. Hi, Kat. Welcome to the Women Always podcast. It's so lovely to have you. How are you doing today?
I'm really good, and it's just like, hello.
We're twinning.
I know. It's like an initiation. Did you wear the right jumper? It's not like Mean Girls, but on Tuesdays we wear Women and Waves or black,
which we totally didn't plan, by the way. And for those who are just
that's why I love it.
Rocked up with exactly the same jumper on, one of our Women and Waves ones on. So that's a good start.
That's how we know it's going to be a good chat, because we're clearly on the same vibe already.
I like it. So for those who don't know, Kat is the founder of Yogi-Bare. You're a very creative writer and a heck of a poet as well, and has been voted top 100 of Entrepreneur of Powerful Women of 2020. What an accomplishment.
Oh, in 2020.
Got loads of 2021 left.
That's still something that is kind of funny. It sits a little bit like oil on water for me, because I get really shy about it. It's really cool, but it also feels, I don't know, like a bit of a dream. Like Ashton Kutcher's gonna come and tap me on the shoulder and be like, "You've been punked." As someone else who's running their own business, I think you're the same as me. You only ever really see what's going on behind the scenes, and it's just all a little bit hilarious, chaos, a bit Fawlty Towers, and then to get an award like that, it's like, that's really cool. But also, look at my team, look at my community. They're the ones who should really be winning the award, not me.
No, you deserve it. And for those who don't know Yogi-Bare, obviously you're basically an amazing yoga brand and community, really. Could you just tell us a little bit about Yogi-Bare before we sort of dive any deeper?
Yeah, sure. So Yogi-Bare is, I don't know, I've described it to people before as being like the Cupid of Yoga Land, because it's all about like connecting people to their soul mat. So we make yoga mat accessories and all the equipment for mobility and movement. I kind of feel weird even saying like yoga mats now, because I've definitely fallen in love with the whole concept of movement, however that comes. And they're all sort of like eco-conscious, high performance, a little bit cheeky, a little bit naughty, a little bit playful. But the most proudest part that I am about the company is the community. Just such a cool group of people, just feel, I don't know, just gives me like little shivers, like kind of when you stand back at a party, or when you've invited loads of friends to a dinner who don't necessarily know each other, and then you're just watching them all interact. That's kind of what like running the social media for Yogi-Bare is like. You kind of realize that people are connecting and following each other and engaging in conversations, or you're watching their journey from just starting yoga to like going on this really powerful change in themselves. It's really cool to observe, and I feel really lucky.
Yeah, you've created like an amazing community. Every time I see your socials and stuff, I'm like, wow, this is a huge.
I just think about yours, dude. Like,
it's amazing.
I look at Women and Waves and I'm like, wow, it's just like, it's an energy that you've created. So I definitely feel the same way about you.
That's mental. So obviously things have been really busy, and we've just launched obviously the Women and Waves and Yogi-Bare collab, which has been awesome. But there is obviously you behind the whole of the brand, which pushes everything. You know, you have so many amazing collaborations going on at the moment, but I feel like, especially from maybe our Women and Waves audience, they don't know much about yourself. So I'm gonna ask you a few questions. We'll just roll with it. But yeah, tell me, where did you grow up? Where's home?
So home is North London, but I've traveled quite a bit for work and through Yogi-Bare, but I also lived in Wales for 10 years, which
Oh,
was
cool.
magical. It was just so cool.
Whereabouts?
So just outside of Cardiff, a place called Penarth,
Yeah.
which is just up from Cardiff Bay. But you know, in Wales, it's like, oh my gosh, it was like living in like Lord of the Rings or something, because you drive an hour one way and you'd be in the Brecon Beacons.
Yeah.
Then, you know, at every angle, you could drive 40 minutes and you'd be at this beach, that beach. And it was just, oh, it was sweet heaven. And it was there that, well, Yogi-Bare was founded in Wales. It was there that I actually became a yoga teacher, some of the happiest memories of my life, and just made the best friends. But yeah, that was where I sort of like cut my teeth as a yoga teacher, and it was so much fun, and I do miss it a lot. And I'm very lucky that a lot of the people that I used to teach still stay in touch via Yogi-Bare, and it's just, I don't know, best cheerleaders.
That's really
So,
cool. Did you would you say you're more of like a city girl, or would you say you're more of like a Wales country girl?
oh, I'm definitely not a city girl.
No.
I came back and I've been living in London for like East London,
Mhm.
Hackney. So, but before that, like I tried different places across London, and Hackney's a nice place because it feels like it's got a real community, and a
Very
lot of
cool
our
place too, hey?
places. It's a little bit too cool for me. Definitely. And sometimes I'd be like, oh, so I've got to wear my bag like that now? Okay, cool. No, it's just an amazing, like really creative, vibrant place. But I I experienced like a lockdown 105 or whatever lockdown it was in, and it made me just realize that I'm not a city girl. Like every part of my bones craves just the ocean, really,
Yeah.
which is really what inspired the meditations that I recorded for you guys as part of our collab. It was all coming, they weren't scripted, they were like literally coming from
No
how I
way.
felt. Oh yeah,
You
it's
didn't
just,
script them?
no.
Oh my god. I was like, this is like poetry. Those
Oh, I think
meditations are
if I'd
amazing.
scripted it wouldn't, or scripted it or like recorded more than one take, it wouldn't have come from where it came from.
Yeah.
It's what I do on the end of my teaching. I always offer a meditation, and it just comes from, I don't know who lives in my stomach. Somebody lives down there, and they just start talking, and my mouth just opens. But yeah, but something happened over Christmas when I decided that I was moving out of London,
Mm.
and that when the world allows and it's COVID friendly, I'm gonna Airbnb hop around Europe, because I just want to wake up and walk on the beach and end the day walking on the beach. And I read Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey, which I would
Oh, I haven't
recommend
read
to
that.
anyone. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. It's so full of perspective on life and vibrancy, and it's called Green Lights because it's all about seeing the green lights and not, and realizing that you can, you know, you can just go. And then sometimes in our life, like COVID has been a red light, but sometimes red lights are there for our own safety and protection on a multitude of levels. And I genuinely believe that if COVID hadn't made me slow down, I probably would have hurtled my way into some kind of burnout,
Yeah.
because it made me stop, take stock, and then like realize what I actually want out of life wasn't where I was sending my life. So it's kind of like then you back it up into reverse and you change direction. And that book is a really inspiring one for anyone who's feeling a little bit lost, or maybe like, I can't, or you know, all that self-limiting trash talk. That book really like changed things for me. So
That's
yeah.
so good to know. That's like, that's the kind of nuggets that everyone needs to read, isn't it? Like things that
Yeah, it's one of those. It's not like a, you know, it's not like, probably as a yoga teacher, people are expecting me to like recommend a spiritual tome, but
did
there
you
was
read it
so much
in
spirit in that.
in his voice?
In my head.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course I did. All right, all right, all
Fabulous.
right.
um, but when so you're gonna do a road trip, and where are you gonna, where's your first couple of stops? Do you have you got that
So
far yet?
I've been looking at like the French coast, because there's obviously so many cool, like just really great communities all along the French coast. I mean, you probably know loads of them through your like surf crew.
Yeah.
And I think
Good.
like places that I just want to be in, places long enough to taste them and really experience what real life is like that, not as a tourist, but then not necessarily long enough to like put cement in my boots,
Yeah.
because I just want to get a flavor and learn from so many different places I visit. Big one that keeps coming up for me is Slovenia. I never would have thought about there
My
before.
friend went there and said it
Beautiful.
was the most beautiful place he's ever visited. Like,
And
and
I
I'd
know,
never
I just
considered it.
can't stop looking at pictures and
Yeah,
being like,
really good
wow,
dress. That's
just
really,
really fresh and unspoiled, but with loads of like magical castles where I might go and meet Shrek or someone. I don't know.
well,
Talking donkey, bring that on my road trip.
totally. With France, it's a weird one because it's such an awesome coast, especially down the southwest and stuff. But you can cycle all through the forests and like end up at like different little towns. But
Oh,
some of
wow.
these towns are like almost like tourist towns. They're like look really modern and like they've put like the ice cream parlors there, the restaurants there. It's all very new, and you're just like they've just built it because there's a campsite near it. It's very
That's
weird. And there's
interesting.
obviously like the amazing picturesque places, but it's just lovely because you could literally just get around everywhere on bike, which is just so calming because you're just like going through all these lovely little forests and things.
I think that's what I'm looking forward to. Just, I think a lot of my trip won't be focused on cities. It's more
Yeah,
just focused on nature, because I think I've just been missing it and craving it. And it's in nature that I find the most clarity and perspective. And I think as a Londoner, I love London. I really, truly do. But it definitely, I think it's taught me a lot. I actually wrote a poem about out of love with a city. Everyone thought it was like a Taylor Swift breakup song, and I was like, no,
oh,
it's about falling out of love with a city, not a person. And I think sometimes we can idolize cities and think that we can connect our identity to them so much, and who we think we are, and just as we can do that to our careers. And when the world changes, just like it has done over the last 18 months or so, it's kind of like you can, if you've tied your identity too closely to what you do for work or to where you live, and then suddenly that changes completely out of the blue, you can completely lose yourself. So I think that that's why this trip is potentially important to me. It's about reconnecting with nature, but also not tying my identity to external things and figuring out like who I am, if that
yeah.
makes sense.
And like working out what you're like in a situation, for example, where you're uncomfortable. I've been in
Mm,
a few situations of that in my time where you're completely out of your comfort zone. I mean, I'm really lucky that I've sort of grown up and lived in Cornwall my whole entire life. It's comfort. But as soon as I go outside of it, that's when I'm like, that's when I really find what I'm really like, if you know what I mean. I'm like, okay,
yeah, and what
I
scares you and what matters to you, and what
how you approach
you're.
things as well. It's like I realize I'm not that brave or whatever. You're like, oh yeah, God, like I'm well out of my comfort zone as soon as so I totally understand what you
I
what you
mean, I'm not gonna lie, I think you're very brave. Starting Women in Waves is like such a rad thing, and it's just like,
it's
but I
like
had
anything surf related, ocean related, beach stuff. Put me in a city, or put me near a tube station. I'm like, oh my God, I'm lost. But I'm like asking for help, and then I'm just like, and they're just kind of like, you know, I'm so vulnerable. I just ask everyone for help, and they're just like, oh, this is.
I've always found that really interesting, because as someone who grew up like going quite young on their own on the underground and stuff, and yeah, it's really interesting. But then I thought that I'd be really good at navigating like the subway in New York or the metro in Paris. So I was useless. I'm like, hang on a second, where's the blue line? Like,
I wouldn't even know. I'm terrible.
yeah, it's really
Um,
interesting.
yeah, that's crazy. If there's one place you need to put on your to-do list is
Okay.
Sintra in Portugal, and it's the most picturesque, magical place I've ever been in my entire life. It's just full of incredible palaces and castles and medieval,
Oh,
and then you have like the beach there, which has amazing surf if anyone's there as well. And it's the most beautiful place in the world. Have a little Google. Um,
I'm going to. I was going to do it now, and then I realized we're in the middle of recording. Okay.
um, but honestly, it's like the most beautiful place in the world. It's just got castles and palaces, and it's also like I've just never been to a place with so much fullness of just what's there, and it's just
Yeah.
Portugal. And
Oh,
you can stay in
I
like
thought we should
Airbnb.
start like a travel podcast, though. Like, should we just do that instead? Cat and Rachel's Guide to the World.
Yeah, look,
Castles. Has to look like a princess's birthday cake. Okay.
amazing. So my big question is like when was the first time you ever stepped on a yoga mat? Like this is a huge part of your life, but where the hell did it all start?
So it's not a very sexy story, I'm afraid.
Good.
I'm not.
I never liked a sexy story.
Yeah, no one likes a sexy story. We're women on waves girls. We're like cats and prey. But yeah, it's not. It's not a sexy story. It's not. It's not like I was a dancer or a gymnast. Not that there's anything wrong with those routes into yoga. In fact, I find those routes into yoga exceptional because you're coming at it from an anatomical, physical perspective.
Mhm.
But for me, and the underlying ethos of Yogi-Bare is and always has been to do with mental health. It's actually like there's my favorite lyric by Nirvana is "Come as You Are,"
Mhm.
and that is why Yogi-Bare exists. Is I wanted to create a brand that well, I didn't even really know I was ever going to create a brand. It was just a joke when I first started. There you go. Those are the best things to start. But I wanted to create something that allowed people to feel like it didn't matter if they weren't flexible or if they weren't, you know, super fit or what they looked like or where they had been or who they were. All that mattered was that one moment that they chose to just come as they are. And that is because of my background is I actually found yoga in rehab.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So when I was young, I was involved in an incident that left me with really severe PTSD and trauma.
Mhm.
And it was at a time because I genuinely feel like it's only in
How
the
old
last
were you? Like,
how old was I when I was in rehab?
or when you had the accident?
When I had the incident, 6. Um, so yeah, and too young to process
Yeah,
things.
but it sits
Um,
back there, doesn't it?
yeah, and it lives in you, and it's like oh gosh, there's so much like on it. It's so interesting because I've like learned a lot about PTSD and the physical PTSD and the mental since, but it's only in the last 5 years that people have been open about mental health. So I
Yeah.
basically grew up feeling like a hummingbird all the time. I just felt zzz,
Mhm.
like on edge, and I didn't really know why. And so then you sort of start, I don't know, thinking that you've got poor concentration or you think that you're, you know, bad at maths or no common sense or whatever. And um, then so basically I just took a wrong turn and I took a pretty bad turn into addiction, because when I was doing things that weren't very good for me, I felt like it switched off the white noise. It was escapism. And anyway, crash landed in rehab at 17. Not my favorite place in the world. Very
Like
boring.
17
Yeah.
definitely wasn't the perfect 17-year-old by far, and it's a really hard time. Like,
Oh my God, it's really hard at the best of times. I mean, I really feel for the kids now, like, because when we were younger, it was all just like MySpace, like take a diagonal selfie, whatever, like,
did
you
you ever
know, the
go
post.
through the emo period?
Yeah, oh no, full on. I still am inside, like
Funny
all
when
of
all
my
the old songs
Spotify.
come on and you can just remember every lyric from them.
Yeah,
Feels
every single gig had to be right in the pit. If you didn't come
yeah,
out of a gig with a bruise or a black eye, you hadn't done it right. Oh, it's
dodgy
terrible.
belt, like we all had them.
No, and when you used to think that it was like just really cool, did you ever wear the double belt, the double studded belt? So you'd have the
I
skinny jeans
didn't
and
because
the
I was
studded belt.
finding my surf feet around those times, if you know what I mean. So I was kind of like
Yeah.
hanging out at the beach a bit, but I also had like friends who were like the skater emo crew too. So I was almost like slightly into that. But I definitely owned a few belts, and listened to like a few of like the emo bands and stuff.
Me too. And now I'm just like, I'm not, yeah, I definitely revisit them and still feel that
I had a
teenage.
MySpace for sure. Definitely
Oh,
had a picture taken from up there for sure.
what was your MySpace song?
Dashboard Confessional.
Oh, you were through and through, and I'm gonna listen to that straight away after this. Still love.
I love that I've never been asked that for so long yet. That was the first thing that came to
I
mind.
know you did really quick.
That's amazing. I haven't thought about them in probably about 10 years. So,
Oh, well, you know that you're going to jump straight off of this and go and put
yeah,
them
who
on.
were those whiny little kids?
Well, now they're both running brands, me and you. I'm joking.
Um,
Um,
so yeah, so you found yoga in rehab.
yeah, and it was the most magical healing thing. I mean, I didn't like it. Oh my God, when I first started doing yoga,
It must have been
like,
quite early on then, because I remember when I was 17, yoga was not a thing.
no, it was, so that's what I mean. So I went to, I found it in rehab, but more via a book. So it was more the philosophy and the thinking
Yeah.
around it. And it was really interesting. It felt like this magical something out of like the Mummy or something, and
Yeah.
I was like, wow. So I read loads about it. I didn't actually practice physically a lot in rehab, and then I went to a couple of classes and I really struggled. I absolutely hated it because it was proper, like you say, there wasn't all the big sexy studios like there is
Yeah.
now, and sexy, like, you know, the whole, all the gear and the out, all that.
The
It
mats
was
all had
quite,
chunks out of them.
yeah, yeah, literally, and just like in school halls, and like I started practicing a style that actually I didn't think resonated with me because it was Iyengar yoga, so it's very strict on form. And as a quite a creative uh, mind always spinning, I was like, no, I'm more of a flow kind of girl. But I'm very glad that I started there because it taught me the foundations and the importance of the anatomy. And actually now it's probably the best practice for me because I am so, if I flow too much and get too creative, I'm probably not being as on it with the form and cheating a little bit. Whereas something like that, because it's like what you said about comfort zones earlier, it's the opposite to what I'm comfortable with. And
Mhm.
that's where you learn and grow the most, if you're doing something that's not comfortable for you.
Yeah.
So but yeah, and then with Yogi-Bare, well, actually with becoming a yoga teacher, there's so many different parts of this story that fit really well with Women in Waves. But so I this was around maybe like late teens, early 20s, but I remember going to saving up to go to a yoga workshop, and I was like, oh my gosh, like in central London, like finally this is, I'm going to go there and it's going to be life changing. And I went there and I've never felt more out of place in my whole life. I lasted about 2 hours. To me, and this is something that I think a lot of people, you know, forget, is how it felt to walk into your first ever workshop, how it feels to walk into your first ever, you know, surf lesson. As
Totally.
we forget the feeling of how intimidated a beginner can feel. And then if the environment that they're walking into perhaps feels a little bit cliquey, a little bit pretentious, a little bit, you know, and it was quite a pretentious workshop, and I just felt unwelcome and like, you don't belong here. And I walked out of that and I was so disheartened. But instead of getting down, I decided, do you know what? Like, I know how good this has been in changing my life and how instrumental it's been in getting me back on my feet. There has to be another way. So that's when I was like, instead of like thinking I'm never going to touch this again, I hate it, I was like, no, I actually, like, I might not, you know, I might not be very flexible, I might be very early in my journey, but I'm going to go and train as a yoga teacher. And I trained actually with a surf school in Fuerteventura, some of my incredible friends. And
Whereabouts?
so it's called Azul, in oh,
Tio?
I can't remember off the top of my head where the place is called, but if you look up Azul Fuerteventura, and it's an incredible couple.
Coralejo?
Coraleco,
Yeah.
yeah, I got to say it like that, don't you? Yeah,
Coralejo.
Coraleco, and it's, oh, I love Fuerteventura. It's such a magnetic island. It's such
It
a weird
really
island,
is, isn't it? It's
but
like one of my favorite places, and isn't it
hey,
so close to here as well? So
yeah, and that's the other thing, is like, it's so close, it genuinely feels like you're on the moon.
yeah,
And there's a real magnetic pull because it's like
all
quite
part as
volcanic.
well, isn't it? It's
You
yeah,
feel something inside of you that's quite spiritual, but you're not sure why. And yeah, it's an amazing surf couple. He's from Isle of Wight, she's from California. They started like literally just giving out free yoga and surf lessons on the beach, and now it's developed into, you know, 12 years on, the most incredible yoga retreat, open every day of the year. And it was there that I credit them really to, I don't know, they changed the game for me. And I genuinely, this is what I've always said to people, that surfers are natural yogis, because whenever I've met a surfer, even if they don't practice yoga, they're so in tune with what it means to be present, because when you're out there in the water, you have to be present. And then even those moments where because obviously you're going to end up in the water. It's meditation in motion. And I don't know, like there's just so much about them, the connection, the interconnectedness. I just feel like it just makes sense, probably at times more than Yoga Land has for me. And I've been on, like, to try and find yoga, I've been on little spiritual pilgrimages of my own making to India, and there was parts of it that I felt it in India, and then other parts of it that I felt like someone had packaged it up and they were trying to sell you India in a box, spirituality in a box. And I was just like, that's not what I'm looking for. But it's only when I in the ocean is where I find exactly what I'm looking for.
That's so good.
Yeah.
I always think I always wonder that, because with after a while, and you probably get it as well, you're so busy, and everywhere's like, you need to meditate, you need to meditate, you need to meditate. But I'm like, if I just do my mundane things of my like morning, whether that's going to go and walk my dog or just like around the coast to
Dog
see,
is beautiful.
she's a little beaut, or like if I go for a surf, for example, I'm like, I swear that zens me out more than
That's your meditation. But that's how I feel as well, and I hope that's why with what we created for people, show them that meditation isn't sit still, empty your mind. And for some people it does look like that, or for some people it is, come back to the breath, come back, and then, like, some people it is, some days it is.
yeah.
But for me, meditation is, I've been playing a bit of a game lately where it's like when I feel overwhelmed, it's like I have to pull myself back and just go, can you hear the birds, Kat? And then it's like, can you hear the birds now? And then it just gets like, I can't stop hearing them, and it gets like, I focused in just for 5 minutes to like listening to the birds. And now as it's turning to spring, that's a really nice game to be able to play, because you can do it anywhere, anytime. Can you hear the birds? And if you can't, then you just keep walking until you can, which basically means to walk out the city.
That's
But
amazing. That's such a good idea to do. I love that. That's a really,
it's just so simple. But it's,
yeah.
the other thing is, with the meditations we made, it's all about, I feel like the memories that we basically, I feel like most people who'd listen to them would have at a time felt connected to the ocean, or felt lost at sea, or had a memory with a friend on a beach that was magical. And what we tried to do was do an imagination meditation where you talk people through memories that they might not have lived that exact one, but then they start to embody the feelings in their body. And it's like a physiological response of when you remember a good memory, your body starts to recreate that dopamine, and you physiologically have that same response. And so you're actually flooding your body with happiness. So sometimes the best thing you can do is go out in life and create rad memories. And then, like, if like you are in a lockdown situation where we can't do much, sit and bring those memories back into your body. So like literally stare into space and think of a time that you were really happy, like at a festival, or, and literally just try and remember every sound, every scent, every feeling of that, and then you embody it again. And it's definitely changed my whole life, because now whenever notice I'm really enjoying something I'm doing, I try and like breathe a little deeper and try and capture how it smelt, and
Yeah.
capture how it feels on your skin, and capture how it feels under your feet. And like it's almost like you're banking all those little tidbits, and then you're like, okay, cool, I'm going to use that when I need that as ammunition.
What's okay, here's a question. So what was your last time that you captured one of those moments, then you're like, I want to remember this?
Oh gosh, I mean, I think like in like weird wonky COVID life, it's been like little moments of like joy, on like talking to my team. Some of these people, like Izzy, who's your best,
Yeah.
one of your best friends, who now works like with Yogi-Bare, and just silly little bits. But as a bigger memory, when on New Year's Day, I love New Year's Day, and it's one thing that I really miss about living in Wales, was used to like New Year's Day, you'd get blasted by wind and you'd be on the beach, and that would be like my favorite way to spend New Year's Day.
Yeah.
But this year was obviously different living in London. So my brother and I went to Hampstead Heath quite early in the morning, when it was still quite quiet on New Year's Day, and climbing to the top of Parliament Hill, and just yeah, squelching in the mud, noticing all the dogs, laughing at like the dogs that had like literally run away from their owner to go and roll in the mud
Yeah.
and jump in the water. And yeah, literally taking in I mean, I'm doing it now. I can like hear the squelch of like on our mud on our boots, and I can remember. I mean, sadly at the top, it was such a misty day that you couldn't see the view, but it's one of the nicest views in London. But I don't know. That was most recent, I suppose.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds really lovely. What a good memory to have with your brother as well. You don't,
Yeah,
you know,
he's a good egg. We get on really well, so.
so you had, so you obviously found yoga and rehab, and then you took it to Fuerteventura. So where did it go from being, you know, teaching yoga to becoming a teacher to then transforming it into a business? Like, what was that plunge? Like, what was your trigger to start? Because, you know, I
It's
remember the moment that I decided to take the plunge with Women and Waves, and it was a bit like, why not me? If you know what I mean. Like, what was it like a moment with you?
I guess it's really weird, isn't it? Because I suppose you must have had the same with Women and Waves in the sense of like, um, you. Sorry, I just had a little moment. We're filming this on video, and I suddenly thought I was in your room, and it's just like I was about to look behind and be like,
Oh,
when did you
fish.
buy that really beautiful cactus? And I was like, oh no, I'm looking at a screen. Sorry. I just felt like I needed to share that. I think, yeah, with Women and Waves, it's probably kind of like everyone expects these moments to be really big, don't they?
Yeah.
Like a really big defining moment, like we're like, you know, like The Social Network and Justin Timberlake's going to play me in a future film. But it never is a big moment. It's just always starts very small. And it was just very small. It was just noticing that eco-friendly and eco-conscious products were so expensive, and I'd been teaching for a little while and really trying to bring playfulness and this ethos to people that might not ever have tried yoga before. Like I've taught in prisons, I've taught kids that like last opportunity schools, which trying to teach just a whole breadth of people that you wouldn't normally go towards yoga, I suppose. And so then it kind of,
That's what it was like for you, right? Like you hadn't,
yeah, totally.
it changed your entire life. Is I get the same with surfing. It's like I always want to bring surfing to people because I know how good it is for people's mental health and just
No,
well-being. And I'm like, you know, I just want to get you surfing and show you that there's so much more. You know what I mean? It's a total different
100%. And it was that feeling that never left me. And I suppose that was my fire. And then I think some of the feedback was, oh yeah, I really like yoga, but you know, like when I look at yoga online, I just see like this world that I can't afford, which is, you know, very expensive outfits, very expensive yoga mats. And then I was just like, well, I wonder if there's a way of doing it differently. Like, I wonder if there's a way of making eco-conscious products at maybe 3/4 of the price or half the price
Mhm.
that like what else is out there, and just trying to make it a tiny bit more accessible to people, and then also maybe try and change people's perception online. And so it just started, I literally turned my personal Instagram into the start of Yogi-Bare. So I'm sure if someone scrolled right back to the beginning, they'd just like find me being a douchebag on it, like me and my dog, and like just. But that's generally how it started, and you know, just little by little, you know, definitely didn't start how it looks now. It was a scrappy website. It was, the packaging was hand drawn and looked like sausage people. It looked awful. And the products, I literally started with 2 yoga mats, 1 yoga wheel, and that was it. And then it just slowly was just that reinvestment
Yeah.
of, okay, like cool, that seems to be selling, then I'll just buy some more and I'll add in another color. And then it was very word of mouth. I guess I was very lucky to
Organic.
start, yeah, and to start in a time before social media was what it is now for running a brand.
When did
At
you
that
set it up?
time,
Sorry. When
um,
was the first
20,
sort of year?
2016.
Yeah, nice.
So it was kind of when all felt like Instagram felt like a bit of a playground for everyone
Yeah.
still. It wasn't so serious.
It was all
No
about fun, not businessy, wasn't it? Like that wasn't, it was
one,
all about people and instant, not
It's just about like Truman Show, like people like thinking, oh, I've got this little handheld telly, I'm going to do like a little funny little TV show to my life. And like no one really took it as seriously as it does now. And you know, it's phenomenal that it's built people's careers and, you know, creative movements. Like Black
I think
Lives Matter
it's going
was so
back the other
important.
way now. I feel like the social media side of thing, everything's going back to raw content, unedited. Like it's more like quick snapshots of like what I'm doing right now, rather than this pristine content that's going
Yeah.
out.
Do you remember all, like you just couldn't help but scroll and it was like perfect pictures of avocado on toast for a while.
Yeah,
And I was like, literally was just like, wow, it's like a cafe menu, making my
totally.
breakfast look like a shame. But that's what I love about your Women and Waves TikTok is, and I love the stories that you do, which is like, you know that a lot of us are craving the ocean and can't be there right now. And the fact that I love that raw stuff that you take us there every morning and you're like, this is your daily dose. And it's like, oh God, she didn't know how much I needed that. And
I
it
get
always
that so much.
felt,
And it's funny because I held back posting that for at the start of lockdown so much when it first all kicked off back in the day, because I didn't want to rub it in. And then when I
not
started doing it, everyone was like, "No, that is just what I need," and it's great
needed it so
that
bad.
it can make a difference. So that was
Feel like I can breathe when I see that. And it also reminds me that there is a world beyond this and that is coming. It is coming. It's not, it doesn't not exist anymore. Like it is coming. It's just with patience and just, yeah. So thank you.
oh, you're so welcome. And what I want to say to you is what I always find with Yogi-Bare, why it's so different to every sort of yoga brand out there, that it's got this little twinkle in its eye and it's a little bit rebellious. And now you've explained your story and why and what your message is that you want to get across. It completely all makes sense. I love
I'm
it.
an emo kid at heart still.
It has. It's just got this like little rebellious touch to it, and I love it because it is a little bit. It's got a dark side. You know what I mean? You sent me this gorgeous mat, that flow mat with the ocean on it, and it was like, do you know what I loved? It was a real rough ocean. It wasn't like
Yes.
completely pristine. It was rough, and it was like, this is like, honestly, when I'm holding poses when I don't want to do it, it's like the best distraction in the world. It's
So
it
glad.
yeah, it's been an absolute game changer.
That's also really nice that you pointed that out because yeah, that also, you're the first person to notice that. That's why like it was that photograph. It had to be because when I look at the ocean when it's at its wildest, that's when I feel its most power.
Yeah,
That's why I love, like I know everyone's image of like the, you know, and don't get me wrong, like I'm craving like a hot sunny beach with just like perfectly warm water, but that what I loved about living in Wales and being able to get to a rugged coastline was I've never felt more alive or more real than staring into rough water and getting like whipped in the face by the wind. And I'm like, that's when you feel so alive. And I guess, yeah, that's when that's kind of what I wanted people to feel as well.
have you been to Llangennith in Wales? That's where we go for our surf coaching weekends down there.
It's amazing.
It's
It's
can't wait. It's that ruggedness down there as well, which is beautiful. And especially around here, like the conditions can change so much. One day you've got pristine blue waters, like yesterday, for example, but today it's a little bit more like howling winds and stuff. But
I
it's
love the fact
still
you can
best.
look out the window and see that as well. She was checking over your shoulder. Oh, today
I,
surf check. I'm
I've
just
got a few
like,
buildings in the way, but I still sort of know the direction of it. um, so I wanted to ask you, because I get asked it a lot, is there anything you wish you had known before you started Yogi-Bare? Because
everything.
you're so you're quite creative and quite wild in a way.
Yes,
So your
yes.
business, is going so well and it looks so slick on the other side. So how did you like? It must be quite hard to rein in the sort of day-to-day stuff. Do you find that quite hard as well?
Yeah, I think there's different elements of it. Like I'm very, very lucky now to have a team.
Hmm.
And it's basically to be able to employ your friends. And I think that that's what I've done is to be able to offer jobs to my friends, which is the biggest, world's greatest honor. It's, I can't even explain. That's the thing I'm most proud of, to be able to like employ friends and who are all just like badass babes, and
That's
some of them are
an
young
accomplishment
mums,
in
and
itself, isn't it? It's like working with people that you just love hanging out with every
yeah,
day.
and just get that brand DNA, like they just get it.
Get it.
But I think uh things that I wish I'd known on a personal level, because it's taken me 5 years to get to the stage where I could employ a team. In the beginning, I think you know, you're overwhelmed, you're and I still am very much. I mean, this weekend was spent doing legal stuff, and it's like you're your lawyer, you're your postman, you're your designer, you're every aspect of the business. And I think it's important to give yourself credit and give yourself a break, and sometimes be like, oh my god, I'm so anxious and so overwhelmed. But it's also like, yeah, you are, because you're doing a lot. And then as soon as you tell yourself like,
Like, well,
hey,
duh moments.
you're, you're doing a lot, it's okay to feel that way. You almost give yourself permission and forgiveness to be like, oh yeah, like I am doing a lot. Okay, cool. Yeah, I have this. That was a biggie.
Mm,
Then boundaries as well, and communication. Saying to someone, the power of saying no. I've only just realized that. Also, yeah, because I always used to just open the floodgates and let everything and everyone in. And sometimes you have to be honest as well in it, because there's no shame in just saying, thanks so much for being patient with me, like I'm really sorry I can't do this right now. I'd love to, maybe we can fit that in 4 months time. And I think that that's really powerful, and I'm only just beginning to navigate and understand that. But on a more practical level, anyone wanting to start their own business,
mhm.
get your IP and trademarks in order
You
before you
told
start.
me briefly about this over a voice note once, saying that you had an absolute shitter over your trademark.
Yeah, I mean, I did have my trademark in order. Mine was kind of just a shame. There was a global brand with that used to go after any brand and company using a paw print. And my old logo used to be a yoga lady within a paw,
Mhm.
and they came after me, and I had quite a solid case, but I didn't have the money to fight it. So that's another thing, is like picking your battles, knowing when it's better for your own mental health to walk away. Because if I'd chosen to fight it, not had the money to fight it, potentially lost because I didn't have the money, I wouldn't I would have lost everything. And instead I was like, you know what, it's not worth it. Like, what do you win at the end of the day? Nothing. Like,
Yeah.
what do they win even? And that was my other final point. Any one piece of advice starting is, remember that you're a whole person underneath your business. And I don't know if this happened to you as well, but for a long time I became Yogi-Bare. I almost grew a set of ears and a little tail. Like, it was just like I became so enmeshed and glued to the business that anytime anything went wrong, it would break my heart. Anytime,
Yeah.
you and it, obviously you ride the lows and the highs of your business, you do. But instead of being like cemented to them, now it's almost like, I don't know, like when you see a dolphin going alongside a boat, that's kind of how it looks now. It's like we're going together, but we're not. I can still be Kat. And I think that that was the biggest change to my mental health and anxiety, was I'm still this whole person. If I lost the whole business tomorrow, I genuinely could take a step back and be like, wow, what a wild ride. That was so much fun. And still have legs to stand on underneath it all, because I forgot who I was for a long time. And yeah, I think that's the biggest piece of advice, because you will give your business everything.
Yeah.
Surround yourself with like-minded people like you, that, you know, make lots of small business owner friends, and share your horror stories and share your funny stories. And yeah, you almost form a community there, but also remember to have a life outside it. So
Yeah. Definitely. That's good advice. That's very good advice.
and now I just need to take it. Like, I'm
Yeah,
joking.
yeah, no, true.
Yeah.
It's hard, easier said than done. So Kat, what's like a normal day for you? Like, what do you do from the moment you wake up?
Okay, so a normal day used to look like absolute bonkers chaos. And then I realized what I was doing was, because no 2 days look the same when you run your own business every day. And also, you might think that you have a plan for the day. It's kind of like when you get a puppy, when you got your puppy, you think you have an idea of how it's going to be. They're not going to go on the sofa. They definitely won't go in my bed. They're definitely not going upstairs. And
No,
then, like 2 days in, yeah, you're laughing because you remember this.
sucker for all
2
of
days in, all the plans out the window, all the sweet little dog toys that you bought, like, are just like, then now prefer your trainers.
yeah.
It's everything that you thought it was going to be like, it isn't. So you just have to be sort of adaptable and flexible with your day. But what I was doing was I was waking up, roll out of bed, straight on my phone, straight on my inbox, straight on my social media. And then I was like literally down in a coffee, like scroll, 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 emails, emails, emails. And it was like the most unhealthy morning routine ever.
And it's worse when
And
you know it as well, and you're just like, oh,
I
stop it.
know. And then I'd start the day anxious. And then what I would do is I'd have another coffee. So it was like pouring gasoline on anxiety. So the past 2 weeks, I've been experimenting. I basically Googled all of the morning routines of like top people I admire in
Yeah.
business or in life.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what do they do? And on the first day, I basically wrote it all down, combined them all together, and I was like, right, I'm going to do this. This is my new morning routine. It had like 25 things on it. It took me 2.5 hours. And I was like, right, that's not doable, is it? Like, it was fun, but it also wasn't practical. And so now I've just cherry picked things that I really noticed had an effect on me, which was, don't go on social media straight away. There's no need.
Yeah.
Like, posting is different now. I feel like, before COVID, maybe there were really good times a day to post, when people were commuting to work. So there was like time that it worked well for me, but now it doesn't even matter. And having a cold shower in the morning.
No.
Yeah, cold water therapy. I hated it. The first 4 times I was like, I'm never gonna like this. This is not me. And then it was on day 4 that I stuck it out, and like did all the breathing while I was doing it, and then I just had this overwhelming peace just come over me, and I was like, I get it now, and it's so weirdly addictive. And
That's
so
so
yeah.
good, because I did the Hoff experience thing, the app there, and I did it for like 3 days. I like in the sea, cold water swimming, fine, got that in
You're
the
the
bag.
real deal though.
Showers, I'm like, hell no, this is like my warm space, and I can't do the shower thing. So it's so good to know that if you hold out maybe for 4 days.
Yeah, no, genuinely, it's the breathing. Because the first few times, like I was like holding on to the little shower door, and I swore my head off. And like outside the door, everyone was going, "Are you right? Have you fallen over?" And I was like, I'm just having a cold shower. But then the other trick that I was given was, we have this nerve that runs like down the back of our neck. It's called the vagus nerve, and it's really interesting to look into, because the vagus nerve is linked with anxiety. And so don't get the cold water on the top of your head, which is what,
Mm-hmm.
where you normally would go shower, because that will send you into a bit of a shocky kind of place. If you tilt your head and you aim for it at the back of your neck, it hits the vagus nerve and does the sort of the job, because that gets into your nervous system, calms the nervous system down, and that has like a lasting effect. And
Oh,
that's the aim that you're trying to go for. So
that's a good tip. Nice.
yeah,
So
tricks of
you
the
do the no social media, cold shower.
cool shower. All right, and then it got a bit weird, and you don't have to do this, but I've got an infrared lamp. So you put that on. It's supposed to mimic in the winter, like the infrared rays that would come through a natural
Yeah,
sun.
heard
Right.
about these.
Yeah, and genuinely, I mean, it's phenomenal for pain, like any old injury, like pointing at it. It's actually really good for acne as
Oh,
well. But yeah, the infrared light, and it's just 10 minutes. And then I listen to my lovely friend Danielle is a really great, like, does kind of similar to what I love to do, imagination meditations. So it's kind of just like, I'll listen to a meditation or a calming piece of music. This makes me sound like such a douchebag. This whole morning routine, I'm listening to it and I'm like, geez Louise. But you got to find what works
find
for
your morning
you.
routine for sure.
And
Um,
sometimes it's going out for a walk.
yeah.
Sometimes the first thing is like, I always think of that scene from The Rescuers Down Under where Cody like chucks on his shorts and he jumps out the door and he goes straight into the outback. And that's my dream morning routine, is to just get out in nature. But in winter it's obviously hard to do.
I said to my husband today, actually this morning, I was like, I'm gonna try and get up for sunrise throughout the whole year. So in summer that's going to be like ridiculously early, but
that's a circadian rhythm. That's how we should be living.
Yeah,
that's how the
so as
animals
long as
live.
I'm walking the dog at the time of sunrise, you know, and then I'll be going to bed earlier, because I've been changing my routine up as well lately, just because I'm trying to help my focus throughout the whole day. So
mine was energy. Like I had no energy and I was like, how do I change this?
Totally. It's like I don't get tired, I just lose focus, if you know what I mean. So it was kind of like, what can I change? So I was like, first of all, I want to get my sleep better. So I've changed my sleeping patterns now, of just making sure I at least get 8 hours, and putting my phone across the room with my alarm, so that I never had just pick up my phone. So when I'm in my bed and I read or whatever, then there's like, oh, let me just check on this, or let me
doom scrolling,
or what's that word mean? Like, you know, there's just none of that. Handy. And if I do have anything, I now have a notepad beside my bed to jot thoughts down, so that I can get it in the morning, but so I don't have to note it on my phone, because I'm such a
great. Yeah, I'm such a notes person. You're the same as me. Like my notes is full of
random words and sentences of ideas.
Yeah, or like when I've woken up, like old Kat, not current Kat, who leaves her phone alone. But I used to write down just random thoughts in the night, thinking that they were like prolific. And then you'd wake up in the morning and you'd be like, I remember one said, in case of zombie attack, surround yourself with treadmills. And I was just like, I thought it was genius. I thought it was like the start of like the next big like rom-com. And I was like, that was just ridiculous. Like,
hold on to it. And then my other one was, I'm going to stop snoozing. So when my alarm goes up, get up, like go and get up, and then do like mobility or movement or yoga.
Opposite. Like I've always been quite mean to myself. Like I've had insomnia on and off, and I've always been like quite mean, as in like, no, you can't rest. Like if your alarm is going off at 6, even if you've only had half an hour of sleep, you're still getting up at 6. And I'm just like, why was I mean to myself like that? So mine's rest more. If I need to snooze, I need to snooze or turn off the alarm completely. It's interesting, like it's kind of like how we treat ourselves is kind of, I've noticed, has a ripple into how we allow others to treat us. So when I'm like doing, you know, that forceful, unkind kind of, you know, come on Kat, like, and it's when my boundaries are wide open and I'm letting people take maybe a bit too much that I don't have in my pot to give, or, you know, agreeing to things that don't, you know, I know that aren't good for me. And it's just like, it's just really interesting. So it starts with how we treat ourselves. So for you, like applying all those little things and allowing yourself time to read and sleep, it is really, really beautiful, because that's where all like the magic happens, in it.
The best thing I've done since lockdown is only arrange meetings when I know I'm not going to be surfing, because then I was just like, if I arrange it all around the tides I can't surf at, then I'm never going to worry about having a meeting when the surf's absolutely pumping, and I'm not going to be like distracted. And also it's just like, I am in charge of my time, I can do what I want. And it was just that little change that I'm like, that's why I'm doing it. Like that's my motivation, to be able to
really easy to forget that. And especially now we're living in this unboundaried world where for everyone, you know, we're all working off our computers, working from home, like, and then the only portal to the outside world and the world we miss is on our phone. And it's just like, wow, this is technology burnout. So it's really great that you've sort of like, yeah, like taken charge back, because sometimes we become total slaves to these things, and it's just like, what? It's just like a little square, and we're letting it dictate our lives, just as some people let social media dictate their life. It's like, it's not in charge.
Because you posted something the other day on Yogi-Bare, and it was about self-love and setting boundaries. What kind of boundaries have you set, like, to?
So most of the stuff that I post on Yogi-Bare is actually, most of the captions are quite personal. There will be little anecdotes and stories of what I'm experiencing in my real life. And then this year we've decided like it's Yogi-Bare's Year of the Self. So each month has a theme. Like January was self-empowerment, to sort of like help people see that, you know, in all the broken pieces of like, you know, we expected this year to be like, yeah, 2021, just got to get through to 2021. And then nothing really changed that much. And it was just to help people see that in all the broken pieces, they can wanted to create content to help put people back together. And this month is self-love. And I think the biggest form of self-love isn't bubble baths and prosecco. It's generally, it's the really unsexy mundane stuff. It's the realizing that you need to change your sleep routine, and putting like, because the first few days of that are quite hard to do.
Yeah.
And it's, for me, it's like, you know, a solid morning routine that isn't sexy, and like it, it's that kind of stuff. And with boundaries, I think I've always had a guilt complex. Is I love people. I love people. And I'm so blessed to have so many amazing friends and be constantly meeting amazing people. And I genuinely care so much about people. But sometimes it's to my detriment, where I get really overwhelmed. Work is overwhelming. And, you know, you only have so much time in the world. And if your health and your energy and your, you know, you're just feeling overwhelmed and anxious, how can you give properly to anyone? And I really started to notice that. And so it was almost like I needed to make my world really tiny again, to then open it back up to people. But also recognizing that no one minds, as long as you're honest and you communicate. Because I was quite guilty of just going full on Houdini when I was, because I didn't want to worry anyone. So I'd always be like, oh God, like I'm overwhelmed, there's too much going on with work, I'll just disappear. And then that's when your friends worry. But now I realize, but when you're open and honest and you're just like, hey guys, like I still love you, here's a picture of a funny dog, I'm just really stacked with work at the
Yeah.
minute, thanks for being really patient with me. And I'm trying really hard to say thank you instead of sorry.
That,
And I know our lovely Izzy, our mate who introduced us,
yeah.
is trying to do the same. She's trying to stop saying sorry, and we're trying to keep each other in check about it, being like, don't say sorry,
I
say
like that.
thank you.
I'm going to take that one. Do you practice much yourself nowadays?
My practice has really changed. It's definitely a battle, and
Mm.
I don't know. I mean, it's really lush to hear about like how much of surfing is still such a key pinnacle in your life, because like obviously we've taken the thing that we're most passionate in the world about, turned it into our job, and we blurred the lines a little bit. And so I struggled with that in the beginning, that I'd taken, yeah, because I could never really get out of my head and lose myself, because I was always just so like, it was so connected to work.
Mm-hmm.
But through like having Yogi-Bare, I've been able to connect with people who practice all sorts of different styles of yoga and movement. And I've just decided to become like an experiment. And I don't know, just it's really nice exploring like animal flows or movement flows, or using a stick for mobility. And so my practice looks really different. And I never really put any pressure on myself to say it's going to be a long practice or a short practice, just, or what it has to look like. Sometimes it's like lying like a dead bug on the floor, and I'm
Yeah.
just like, oh, it's good. So it's more being intuitive. But yeah, definitely I have realized how important, because it takes a lot to get on the mat sometimes. Some days it's really hard to get on it, but they're the days that it's actually really hard to get off of it, because you've done a little wiggle and then suddenly you realize, oh man, that just changed the game. I feel so different. And so, yeah, I think it's always remembering that feeling for me, how good I'll feel afterwards, because you
Yeah,
always have time. It's just making it, I
totally.
think.
I think because you said like it's with surfing and everything like that, I think for me it's like, and with a lot of yoga instructors that I've met as well, like the flow of it changes so much from the start to the beginning of their career. They see different sort of avenues to go down, and it's the same with like surfing. Like I will change whatever board, like I might take a bodyboard out one day, I might just go for a swim one day. It's always ocean based, but I
Yeah.
will just go and do whatever I feel like. I don't limit myself
No
to
expectations and no
just that.
pressure.
Yeah, so it's just like, and have, yeah, no expectations, it's always going to be changing. So but even going on the mat and stuff, like I've really lost my whole flow lately, so I've just been getting on and just not really like setting myself any boundaries with it, of like doing this practice, because I didn't feel like it. So I was just going on and just doing some movement, and then it would be like, 30 minutes has passed and I've just been doing it without even thinking it. It just
Yeah, and I think that's the
like
best
my back
way.
really needed a stretch, obviously, because I've just been doing loads of sort of movements which help my back. So it's actually quite nice to go on it with no expectations and just see where you kind of
100%. And like, you can't take a picture of yoga, and this is the funny thing with social media is like, it's really cool and it's really great, and like obviously what does the best on social media is like when people probably post pictures of the more fancy poses, and it's just like, but you can't take a picture of yoga because yoga is a feeling.
yeah.
um, and it's just like, I think that that has definitely stemmed a lot of people's insecurities to want to try yoga, or they get frustrated and have expectations, and you know, all of that. And it shouldn't be about that. It's like moving in a way that moves you, I guess,
Yeah,
like because you feel it. And yeah, I think just taking away expectations from every aspect of my life really means that you find the joy and the intuition again.
totally.
So
What would you say to anyone who wants to give yoga a try, or has completely lost the flow? Would you just say just go with no expectations? And
yeah, I would definitely say go no expectations. And then the sweetest phrase that one of my really good friends, who's a phenomenal teacher called Carl Four, told me. He said, "How you touch the earth is how you show up in the world." So he just said basically go on all fours and like notice how you're touching the earth, like, and it's like, are you like nah nah nah, neither here nor there, like you can't even really feel your whole hand connected to the mat, or are you like over grasping, over trying, shoulders up by your ears, like trying too hard? And then it's kind of, then you sort of like drop away expectation, you find the midpoint between the two, and then you sort of go from there, like practice from that place of like not trying too hard, or not being, not, you know, completely nonplussed, disconnected. And then you notice that has a massive ripple effect in how you hold up in the world. Like, you don't hold on to things too tightly, but you give heart when you need to
yeah,
give heart and soul. And so it's, yeah, it's a really nice way of looking at it, I think.
that's really cool. Um, where so with Yogi-Bare, it's obviously going at 100 miles an hour at the moment. It's so much is going on, and it's incredible to see. But what do you see for it in like 5 years' time?
So yeah, it's mad. Honestly, every morning I wake up and I pinch myself, and when I get stressed,
Hard to see
like,
because you're in it as well, but from the outside, it's looking awesome.
oh, thank you. When I find it all a little bit much and a little bit like relentless, I said to someone earlier that it was like, you know, in the Halloween episode of The Simpsons where the donuts are being fed to Homer, and they just keep on
Yeah,
coming.
yeah.
They just keep on coming, and he's never going to get to the end of it. And I just feel like a little bit like that with the workload sometimes. But then I have to pull myself out of the stress and laugh. I need to call like Izzy or Eve or Lucy on my team and just laugh and just be like, this is all so funny. Like, here I am getting stressed, but I'm doing stuff that like is pinch me, like working and meeting people, having calls, and I'm like, just see the funny side to it. And at the end of the day, it's just yoga mats.
Yeah.
But it's so like, why am I like letting it like see it as a negative? It's all so positive and joyous. But we're launching in America, trying to make some tracks in America,
Amazing.
um, and Japan, which is a bit mad.
Ooh, that's
Yeah.
cool.
And I just want to keep collaborating with cool people. What I think meant the most to me was what we collaborated on. It wasn't selling anything. It was, we both love and adore our community so much that we wanted to give something back. And it's just amazing to be in a job where, yes, you obviously have to like have the sales aspect of it to make an income and make a living and employ your staff, but to be able to work in something and just create content from your heart because you've got people that support you and are your cheerleaders, and you're just like, I just want to give them a little gift, let's make some fun stuff for them to support them. As long as we never lose that with Yogi-Bare, I will be so happy. Like, it's not about like anything other than having a bloody nice time, collaborating and connecting with really cool people, and just giving back. And that's all I really care about. So
That's so nice. It's good. And those meditations, you know, we've already launched one. When this podcast goes out, we probably would have launched two, and the yoga. And it is just so nice, and you can tell that it means so much to the whole of Women in Waves community as well, just because it's so needed right now because of whatever it's been to. I think it's come at the like perfect timing. So yeah, thank you so much.
Oh no, it's my pleasure. But it's you working with someone like you who has the foresight to care that much about Women in Waves crew, just as much as I care about Yogi-Bare crew. And if we can like combine it, really nice.
Oh, so we are just coming to sort of the end of our time, which has flown by. But obviously now I have my favorite part of every podcast episode that I do, which is the fire round. Fun.
I'm really so scared about this.
So the idea of it is me to basically ping some questions over to you, and you've got to answer as quick as you can with as little thought.
No waffle. Okay.
Okay, are you ready, Kat?
Not a waffle. All right. Concentrate.
Okay, so first question is the best piece of let me start again. The best piece of advice you've been given in the last 12 months.
Listen to this podcast because I said most of it in this podcast.
Yeah. You've given us loads of snippets all throughout.
Okay.
Okay. What is your spirit animal and why?
Oh my gosh. A puppy, because puppies are a bit, well, very clumsy, but also they have the zoomies. So basically I have zoomies and I crash, and also just like see everything, and I'm usually dribbling and see everything in quite like a excited way. So yeah, definitely puppy for the zoomies.
So cute. Remind me to send you pictures of my dog doing the zoomies. She does it.
I need to.
If a male dog sniffs us, she loses her mind. It's ridiculous.
Oh, same. No, I'm joking.
3 books you recommend reading. Obviously you said Green Light, would that be one of them?
Green lights, 100% green lights. Anything by the author Henry Beston. He basically took himself into nature and observed nature over the course of a year. Most beautiful writer ever. And The Body Keeps the Score, which is all about how we hold emotions in the body. It sounds really deep. It's actually just the most beautiful read ever, and you will learn so much about everything. So that for sure.
That's amazing. Just for all our listeners there, can you just list them off again?
Henry Beston, who is an author. The Outermost House is the one I'd recommend. Green Lights and The Body Keeps the Score.
Perfect. Thank you. So the next question. Aliens have abducted you. They say you're allowed to bring one fun thing with you. What do you bring?
I've got to say yoga mat, don't I? Yoga wheel.
I was really going to say something else. I'd be like, I wonder if it's a red lipstick. It's like,
do you know what? Yes, but do you know what? Everyone always points out the red lipstick thing, and I didn't really realize. Like, I put it on when I'm just like excited or happy, or maybe need to be brave. I have a shade that's actually to make me feel brave when I need to do something scary for work. And everyone always says about like has Kat ever been seen without red lipstick? And jokes about it, and I'm like, yeah, that's definitely my thing. I need to impress these aliens.
Yeah.
I need to be brave around these aliens. Yeah, Lady Danger's coming with me.
Next question is, what is your favorite account you follow on Instagram? You don't have to say Women in Waves.
I actually was going to though, because of what we spoke about earlier in the podcast, the daily dose. If any, I mean, obviously everyone listening to this follows you, but if anyone new has come via Yogi-Bare to listen to this, follow it for that daily dose. Oh my gosh. And a friend of mine who's an exceptional photographer called Volcare, VOL_CARE, and you'd love it actually. It's all dreamy surf photography, but he's constantly experimenting with like different ways of photographing the ocean, and yeah, I just lose my mind like over those pictures.
That's really cool. I'm gonna go check him out after this. See, I don't know if this next question contradicts what we've just spoken about, but it's basically, what is your favorite yoga position and why?
I really like a wavy down dog, or a wavy like cat cow, when you really like connect with each little pearl of your vertebrae. I think that's actually my favorite, because it's not about doing the perfect downward dog. It's just, and then that whole cat cow touch the earth. It's just yeah,
That's
that
really
resets me. Yeah, for
good.
sure.
And a really important question: what are you curious about now?
I'm
Big
curious
question.
about now. I'm it's gonna sound really geeky. Biohacking. So like a lot of my daily routine stuff that I was looking into has stemmed from reading books about biohacking, which is all about hacking sort of your biology, as it were, to be the best, most energetic version of you, because we've like literally lost so much. I mean, I could go on and on about this, but we've lost so much touch, out of touch with like natural ways of living. I mean, even sitting on a chair and all that. And yeah, just reading about sort of like functional medicine. I have quite a geeky sciencey side, and yeah, functional medicine and the link between the gut and the brain has always fascinated me.
Yeah,
So
I've
anything about that.
before, and it's a lot about gut instinct and stuff as well.
But exactly, and butterflies in your stomach, and
It
as
all goes
someone
back
who's,
to science as well, so it kind of
yeah,
makes you go, oh yeah, that's why we do that, and that's why.
it's phenomenal when you recognize that, like you just said about intuition and gut instinct. I've always been very bad at trusting my intuition, even though it was always right.
Yeah,
And then when you realize there's actually a whole layer of that that's scientifically proven, because these organs are like the first two to develop at the same rate in the body when you're in the womb,
mm.
the gut and the brain, from exactly the same matter. So interesting. Not going to geek out. That's
It
another
also
podcast.
goes back to all of like your experiences, doesn't it? So like even from the very time, like any experience that you've had, even from like meeting certain people, and then you hear that they hadn't had a good
Forms neural
time.
pathways in the brain and echoed in the song. You need to read The Body Keeps the Score, dude.
I know,
Like, you'd
I
love
will.
it.
That's so good. That's amazing. So that's fire round over, but I just have a couple of questions just to like round up. They were good answers. Um,
Pressure.
um, like what do you have any advice for any surfers getting into yoga? Like why there's such a synergy between them both? Like why do you think surf and yoga like matches so well?
Well, it's like what I said, like from my experience of, I find that surfers are natural yogis because they accept the interconnectedness of everything. Like you are, when you're surfing, you are out of your mind into your body, but out of your body into your board, but not on your board, but in the ocean.
Yeah,
And it's kind of like the same thing happens. I think people have a perception that yoga is a pose, but the whole point of yoga is to like totally lose yourself and like get out of your head. So that's why there is so much synergy. So I'd say if that you're surfing, you're already a yogi. You're
yeah,
already doing it. And like if you are finding it, oh, this is so boring, this is so like not for me, just play around with different styles. Like you might find that you like animal flow, or you might find that you like just mobility, or perhaps you needed a yin class. It's just about getting out of your head and any preconceptions.
mm-hmm.
And I think that that's the biggest thing. If you're struggling, just get playful and curious and experimental. Try different things.
I've got to say I tried animal flow not long ago. I've been doing a little bit of it here and there, and oh my god, it's so hard.
It's really hard. Like, or I think it's mainly because I like the names and stuff. Loaded bear, loaded beast. Like, it's just, I don't know, I just like it. It's just really weird.
Yeah,
I
it's
love this stuff.
very grounding, isn't it? Just like
Yeah.
Kat, it's been such a pleasure, obviously, working together on this collaboration with Yogi-Bare. Thank you so much. It's been amazing. Is there anything else you want to share with us before we sort of round it up for the day?
I mean, I've loved every minute of this. Like, there's so much synergy. I think, I think just really just, I think anyone out there who's really struggling right now, just, I suppose two tips is just to, anything in your life that doesn't make you feel good, you don't need, like, find things that make you feel good and help you, whether that's following people on social media that make you feel uncomfortable, icky, or watching too much of the news. You don't need to do that to yourself, and so just like go onwards with sort of kindness to yourself and no expectations, and stay sort of playful and curious about things, because it is all coming to an end. It really is. So yeah. And listen to our meditations if you're feeling lost at sea.
Yeah, so our meditations are obviously available on our YouTube, and we have the Move Like Water yoga class on Saturday as well with Philly Stokes. And where can we find more about Yogi-Bare, Kat?
So it's at yogi.bare. If you are on Instagram, just as we told everyone not to go on their phones. And then if you ever want to chat or you want to ask anything or talk about mental health, I'm at What's Good Cat on Instagram as well.
Perfect. And if anyone wants to get their hands on one of your lovely flow mats, you can also
find it on your shop.
yeah, the Women Waves Instagram on the link in our bio there as well. But they are one of a kind. They've never seen a yoga mat like it or used one like it. So that's amazing. Well, thank you so much, Kat. I hope your morning routine continues. It sounds good. Let me know how it goes.
Updated on the hilarity of it all. I was like, add more mad stuff.
Yeah, keep us posted. I'm gonna take a lot from that. Thank you so much, Kat. Have a lovely afternoon, and
thank you for having me. Yeah, thank you. Bye.
See you later. Bye. Thanks for listening to the Women Waves podcast. Tell us what you think in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more podcasts coming your way.